Today we have Adrian Lacey joining us from Ubisoft France. And Adrian, thank you for joining us. He is the producer of Space Junkies. And Adrian, we just have a couple questions for you based off of the 3dRudder. And for those who aren't familiar with your game already, can you just give them a brief description of what Space Junkies is?
Well, Space Junkies is a jetpack-fueled joyride, a multiplayer shooter in outer space. Basically, you fly around, you dodge, weave, groove, and move through deadly orbital arenas with your teammate or on your own in 2v2 or free-for-all battles.
What opportunities does the 3dRudder bring to Space Junkies and ultimately the PSVR user?
Well, I think for the experienced VR users today, there's quite a number of different angles to look at. Rotations, particularly in a shooter, are critical. So actually smooth rotations, being able to turn. Now on PS Move, you don't have your sticks, for example. So now it allows you to do a rotation naturally with your feet. And same with vertical, going up and down. Because we're in these spherical battle spaces, the rudder will allow you to go up and down quite intuitively, so you can still concentrate on your aiming and shooting and not worry about multiple inputs and interactions on your hands or on the PS moves. So it adds another dimension. Same with people with issues with certain people with issues with finger movement or accessibility. It also adds another layer for them.
Oh, excellent, excellent. And how difficult was it to implement on a technical standpoint?
I mean, we're lucky. I mean, we're based in Montpellier, France, and the guys from 3dRudder are just up the road. They're about an hour away, I think. So they just came into the studio. We sat down with one of our programmers. It took us about hour and a half to do a basic integration, and then it's obviously you take a bit more time to clean and test and all that, but the integration was really straightforward. It's very much plug and play. I think they've done a great job on that side of things. It's very easy to input and put the control structure in place, so that's been great.
That's awesome. And I mean, foot controllers are kind of becoming a thing within the VR community there. How do you see these impacting the future of VR, just as far as a new peripheral to use, as far as getting more immersed? How do you see that changing the future of VR?
I mean, I think in terms of everything in VR for a lot of us who've been working on it a while, it's evolutionary. You know, I give the example of a new controller. You know, like the DualShock controller was an improvement. The Wii remotes were a shift. You know, the nunchuck and the Wii remote. The rudder is another form of interaction and a way to interact with a game. So all those steps will continue to evolve. So for us, that's important, and it also allows us to discover new ways how people want to play. We can have an idea of how we want you to play when we're making a game, but it's very much how you interact and how you use the rudder that will show us the light at the end of the tunnel. So until we see people playing, it's hard for me to say, is this the best thing ever? How can I use it better and better? It's a very much an iterative process, and I think the more peripherals and the more people who are doing stuff like this, the better.
That's excellent, and you guys did a great job with the implementation of the Move controllers there too as well. I'm loving that, but
awesome.
I'm waiting for your 3dRudder update too as well. I can't wait to see how differently that even changes the game for me, going from the DualShocks to this, and then using those two things in unison there. From a player standpoint, how was the 3dRudder been for you? I know you're saying it'll change on a technical standpoint of stuff there for people, but for you, what's been your experience with it there? What's been your...
Yeah, I mean, it was really fun because I think obviously our original prototypes for Space Junkies was, we started off on the HTC Vive, so we used the wands, and then we actually we originally started on the razors years and years ago, and a bit of tape and a bit of Scotch tape and stuff to get those, to bring your hands into the game. Then we moved to the Vive, then the Oculus Touches came out. And then we were kind of looking at PlayStation and the moves, which were a little bit different because they didn't have sticks and things like that. So it made it quite hard from an input point of view or perspective and a design perspective to give a PlayStation Move user the same level of interaction, the same level of sort of reactiveness when they're playing a game. When we combine our control system with Move, with the rudder, it adds another layer. So it means your rotations and your verticality. So when I'm playing, it's quite intuitive. So it adds another peripheral, but because I'm doing it with my feet, it gives me more room to maneuver like sticks, room to look with and aim and shoot. So it makes me a bit more competitive. That's basically what it does. So that's been my experience so far. I think one of the big things for PSVR players that we found was the smooth rotation, and actually that freedom of hands. Because with the DualShocks, what we found was although they were still competitive, there was a blind spot because you had to, like on your, we're in this sort of round circle, this spherical battlefield. So when you're on DualShock, you've got two hands on the pad. So when you're trying to aim sort of corner left or corner right, you can't go quite there because you don't have sort of the freedom of your hands to sort of aim, or a sword or whatever. Same with the shield. The shield, we had to lock it into a position, which is, so it made a disadvantage because normally your shield you can protect from the left, up, down, left, and whatever. So I think the moves have given the PS players a lot more freedom again, and that liberty to reload and the solar saber and all that kind of stuff. So I think it's been a good move. I just wish I would have thought about it before. So at the time we didn't really know how many people were using moves, and then obviously everyone was like, I want moves, and we're like, so you always forget one thing. You always forget something.
It's a tough one on that too, because you never know. I mean, some games can work a little with it, but yeah, the majority of people, of course, are going to have that demand for the moves out there, because that's, to them, everything, they don't realize sometimes how hard it is to integrate for you guys, especially for games that's been out there too as well.
Absolutely.
Plus Sony's restrictions with the movement, and then making sure you got to go through all those different layers of stuff there. So
exactly.
We appreciate you guys that you keep working. I mean, not only for the people out there in the community, but I mean, to work with Sony to better stuff for everybody out there too.
Absolutely.
As well. And you listening to the community and doing what you did recently, I mean, that's a big deal. Cool. Especially when the players know you're listening to them,
Well,
keep them happy,
we don't make
keep
it for ourselves.
Happy, right? Right.
Well, it's what we say. We don't make games for us. We make games for them. So if they're not happy, well, we're scuppered.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate it. I'm sure other people do too. I'm not as hardcore on you guys if something goes out there. I know that it'll come on my end there. You know what I mean? But if the fact that you're hearing other people I've seen before, even bigger companies, they just won't listen to anybody else at all, and they're just kind of shy away. But you guys have been superb on every level. So thank you for being you. As far as a learning curve for your game, for the rudder, it is, from what you described, doesn't sound like it would be too difficult to get used to if you're already used to doing those kind of movements on the joystick or with your hands with the moves eventually.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty intuitive. Rotations, like the up-down takes you a bit of time, but it's just a rewiring of your brain, if you know what I mean. Your brain just has to get over that first step, but it's very intuitive. That's the good thing about the rudder. It's quite a natural. You know what you're doing with your feet, so it's pretty straightforward. There's not much friction there for that. And that's why, again, that finding this simplicity is the hard bit in the first place, and I think they've done a good job at finding that simplicity.
That's excellent to hear. It's anything to help change the game for people, right?
Exactly. Well, yeah, absolutely.
The more immersive, the better. We love that kind of stuff. So thank you, Adrian, for your time. Really appreciate you answering these questions for us and everybody else out there. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye.